Okay. Okay, we are live now. I'm just going to check, yeah. So firstly, I would like to welcome everyone. Mridula and Nirupama, thank you for being part of this, for joining in our opportunities for finance. And also, I would like to welcome Parth, who is in year 10.
Year 10, yeah.
Who's in year 11.
Yeah.
So who are quite curious to find out a bit more about the opportunities in finance. So I'm going to now hand over to Parth and Mukund. So would you like to introduce yourself a little bit briefly, and then we can get the hosts as well?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Parth and I'm going into year 10 and I have interest in business and maths.
Yeah, so as you heard, I'm going to year 11. My name is Mukund and I'm interested in business, maths, sciences. So yeah. Get started.
Mridula and Nirupam, would you like to briefly give us your introductions as well, please?
Yeah,
Yes,
I can start. Oh, sorry.
That's okay, Mridula, go on.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us, boys and Anu. It's a real pleasure to be here and to share whatever we know, talk about how it all started in finance for us. So thank you so much for that. My name is Mridula, or Ruby, as many of you might know me. I started in finance when I joined KPMG in India in the corporate finance or investment banking team. It was a fascinating time to be in mergers and acquisitions. As you can imagine, India was opening up at the time. And then I moved to the UK and joined AXA Insurance. So moved from corporate finance to business finance, which is very interesting. And I'm sure when we talk about it later, I'll talk about the differences between that. After that, I worked with the Cabinet Office. So I was in the civil services and working in a different area of finance, which was much more management information and a sort of data, as it were. And again, it's going to be one of those things where finance and data and information all come together. And now I have my own consultancy where it's a little bit of everything. And finance, of course, plays a huge role because you're trying to help small businesses strategically understand how they can improve and look at finance as one of the components in that. So that's me.
Okay. Thank you, Mridula, and hello, everyone. So I'm Nirupama, and I have 18 years of experience in trade finance. My story is a little bit interesting. I have a degree in software, but somehow I just landed up in banking, landed up in trade finance. And I started liking the concepts. Like I just joined their trade finance department as a temporary thing till I get some, I get a proper job in my software field. But slowly and steadily, I started liking the field, the concepts, and I decided to just be there, learn more about it. So by this, I think, as Mridula was saying, if you are good in something, if you have done, good in something, it necessarily doesn't mean you can't do good in something else. So that's where my story started in India. I started with Standard Chartered Bank, trade finance. I worked there for 4 years, then moved to UK, and UK, I joined State Bank of India for a few months, and then I landed up in Kuwaiti Bank, one of the Kuwaiti banks, and I think I joined there in 2007, and since then I'm in the same bank. So I think in all it's 18 years of experience. I would I'm not sure whether you would be aware of trade finance, because when I talk about trade, people think it's something else. But in layman terms, I would just explain. It's about a buyer and a seller who are in two different countries. So when they sell goods, sometimes these people, they don't understand even each other. They don't have a common language. But how do they do business with each other? there comes these like buyers and sellers, they get comfortable when a third party comes in between, and then they are happy. For example, if buyer or seller, if one of them is selling goods, he wants he wants to be sure of the payment that is coming from other side of the world. So who ensures that smooth running? Similarly, other thing from the buyer perspective, oh, if I am getting goods, am I getting the right goods? Like, you can tell me anything. Okay, I'll give you X amount of pencils, pens, anything. But am I getting, what we have like made a contract for? So again, bank comes into picture. So what bank does? Bank facilitates their documentation, ensures the smooth running. So they talk through banks, and it ensures them the comfortable zone. The goods are received in a proper manner, the payments come in a proper manner, and if there is some sort of default, then banks talk with each other, and those people get comfortable with each other, then they can do any businesses. We've seen many clients who are doing business with each other from 20 years, 25 years, but they haven't seen each other. They haven't, obviously now video, but never met in person. So that's where trade finance comes into picture. So now in my day-to-day thing, I work in an operations department. So when, for example, the goods are, shipped from one part of the country to another part of the country, in this course, there are many documents that get produced. So you'll have an invoice, for example, you will have a certificate of origin, because, goods are moving. So you have different specifications. You will have a bill of lading if the, ships are going through the shipment is happening through ships, or airway bill, for example, medicines or some fragile things, they can't afford to put them through ships for 25 days. So when these documents are stacked up, the shipment has happened, the beneficiary, the seller, would have a stack of documents that he sends us to the bank, and bank, what he does is basically checks those documents for the rules and regulations, for the compliance, that are they valid documents. If someone is saying he sent the goods, has he really done that? Does it evidence that? So that's what we do in the trade operations department. We just ensure the compliance of the documents and all. We don't actually go and check the goods, is it nice, is it faulty, we don't actually do that. But through documents, we just try to evidence that everything seems to be in order. So that is what we do. Benefits.
Can I just say quickly? I think it's given us a really sort of a brief overview of what trade finance is. But also, I think the boys have sort of formulated some specific questions, so which I think I'm going to pass it over to them now, so they can, I'm sure they've got a little bit of overview, and they had this in mind to ask you what trade finance is. So I'm going to hand over to Mukund. Mukund, do you want to start off? And
Yep.
Yes.
So they can shoot more specific, I think, their doubts, because otherwise there'll be too much information overload. So we'll kind of break it up so it's easy. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm just going to start with a basic personal question about what you do day to day at your job. So just simple tasks, what do you go through every day? So if Nirupama can start. So.
Okay. So what we do is, as I said, when the shipments happen, when the goods move from one country to another country, documents get produced. Yeah, for example, invoice, certificate of origin, your shipment evidence that shipment has happened. Then all those documents are given to the bank, that is us. So what we do, we check those documents for compliance. Rules and regulations, are they following everything? Are they doing things in a particular order that they are supposed to do?
Yeah.
So, and if there is any problem in that, we do speak to them, oh, get this rectified, or this is okay, or, things like that. So we check the documentations for the compliance. And then obviously, because it is a bank, you have systems in place to input, output, do payments, which happen via SWIFT. So that is the flow that happens.
So basically, your organization is the middleman between the two companies exporting and trading.
We are not agents or middleman, no.
Yeah.
We just facilitate it. Yeah. Because I'll tell you, for example, a person in here doesn't know Kuwaiti. He's doing shipments with Kuwait, he's doing something, but he's more comfortable with talking to us as a local bank. So what we do, we have a contact with the local bank over there. We do that communication, we facilitate. Sometimes the customer will say, I mean, it's quite deep. Sometimes the customer will say, see, this is a project I'm having, this is a shipment, and will you finance me for that? So, we facilitate. Or the customer might say, your client in UK might say, I want to do shipment, but I'm not sure whether the other person on the other side of the planet will pay me. So we give solutions to him, what he can do. But we are not agents, who arrange those shipments or take commissions in respect of that. No, we just facilitate the trade.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Mridula, do you want to just give us an insight on what you do on a
Yes,
day-to-day
yes,
basis?
of course. Mine will be, I'm going to give you 3 different examples, because I'll start out with the corporate finance role, and then I'll go on to business finance, and then talk a little bit about the civil service. So a day in the life of a corporate financier, if you're doing mergers and acquisitions, will basically be that you need to understand that there's a buyer and a seller. So there's an organization that is either looking to buy or either looking to sell. Now, what happens if there are 2 people who want to enter into a negotiation? You do need someone who will act, like Nirupama was saying, as a facilitator, but also someone who will ensure that the company is being valued correctly. So you will have the bit around finance, which will become absolutely critical, is how do you value a company? So what you're going to need for that is you're going to have to understand the financials for the past few years. You need to understand what the future projections of the business are. So let's say the business is in, so I used to lead the technology, media and entertainment sector. So imagine that there is, Microsoft, okay,
Yeah.
looking to buy a company. Microsoft comes to you and says, look, I'm looking for a company which is approximately 500 people that has about 250 million turnover. And I'm looking for this particular area in cloud that I don't have expertise in. Can you help me look for someone? So we will then take that brief away. We will then go and look for potential sellers and take that up. Say to them, here are 20 companies I've got for you. We shortlist that, bring that down to 5, start discussions with the companies. There's extensive negotiation. There's a non-disclosure agreement because people cannot speak to someone else when that conversation is happening. After which you then nail it down to perhaps 2. And then really, if you come down to think of it, finance will all come down to negotiation. I'm going to say, right, I think you're worth 20 million. And they say, absolutely not. We think we're worth 150. And then there's a halfway house somewhere. So our job as facilitators, as corporate financiers, also becomes talking to the client and explaining to them, look, I know they're asking for a bit more, but by doing that, you will get X, Y, and Z. Equally, sometimes all the seller wants is a yacht. If you understand that, they're not looking for 20 million. They're probably looking for 5 million and a yacht. So it's critical to understand the requirements. And I think this is something you'll find as business majors for both Parth and Mukund. Understanding strategically what is the requirement of the client is vital. You cannot confuse money with everything. You can't think if we pay them more, we're going to get what we want. You have to understand what do they need. So a large part of finance, and here is where I want to bust these myths, and I'm sure Nirupama, you'll agree with me, is not so much that you've got the qualifications. I mean, I'm not an accountant, and I don't want to recommend to everyone that if you want to enter finance, you have to be an accountant. It's great if you want to be an accountant, but there are many other qualifications you can do. Equally, I had colleagues who were history majors, or who were economics majors, or who were doing languages. It really has nothing to do with your qualifications per se. It's about understanding business. You need to strategically understand the direction the company is taking and to understand what are the requirements of the client.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that is the key to anything. So if there's one sort of piece of advice and counsel, I would say finance in terms of the numbers is great, but if you don't understand the actual business, if you don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, then you're going to miss a trick. So that's sort of the the M&A part, and obviously there is a lot more to it, but this is the key. I should add, if you're doing finance, what would also help a lot is contract negotiation. So it's very important to understand legalese, as it were, because two companies are going to enter into a legal contract. Now, you don't have to be a lawyer, but you do need to understand what the impact is if they did that. To give you an example, let's say in a contract it says you are barred from working with Google for 2 years. That's too much for a small business, you know. You can't enter into that kind of a contract because that would mean it would be really difficult for them to survive. So that's when the negotiation happens. No, sorry, that's not going to work. Can we make it 12 months? And then the toing and froing takes place. So negotiation, business understanding, and of course, the ability to communicate, absolutely vital. If you cannot communicate with people, to me, you can have all the degrees in the world, but it's absolutely not going to help. So that's the mergers and acquisitions world. And having done that and having done 20-hour days, I was burnt out. So I have to say that it's all very glamorous and wonderful when you're traveling places and, you know, going on private jets of clients, but it comes at a toll. There's a price you pay. Also, I should say in corporate finance, you don't necessarily have influence. What I mean by that is the client might tell you, thank you very much for your work. Here's £1 million of fees. We're not going to go ahead with the transaction anymore. It's a very normal, regular thing to happen. So you've put in a lot of work, a lot of effort. You've really invested, but nothing comes of it.
So would you say that sometimes it would lack job satisfaction in terms of the actual feeling rather than the finance, like the money you get?
I think, Mukund, it's very personal. But for some people, the money itself is the sort of benefit, and for them, it's like that's enough to keep me happy. But I think sometimes you realize that I keep going in there, and I'm closing what we call closing a deal, but actually they might decide not to do that transaction, or it may not be successful, and that's when there could be an impact on job satisfaction because you're working, but you want to see something at the end of it. You want to see a different kind of closure. And that's when, for me, I thought going into business finance would be more interesting. So when I was with AXA, my role was I was working and ensuring that I was the hub between all the departments in the insurance business. So in insurance, you'll have claims management, you'll have underwriting, you'll have actuarial who have done the analysis in the past, you'll have costs, you'll have the sales team. There needs to be somebody who's the hub, who collects all that information and puts it together to tell the business, the head of business, or rather I should say the board, whether this is going to be financially fruitful or not. What I mean by that is you'll hear very often that, you know, a company might be looking at an internal rate of return of X%. Now, what does that mean? Or a return on capital? They are looking for a return on their money. And if they don't get that return, they don't want to do the deal, right? All banks will have that. Oh, no, this is a great deal. Or, you know, it's John Lewis is the client, but guess what? I'm making 9% on it. I'm bleeding too much. There's no point. So my job was to report to that board as the head of my team to say, this is a great deal, great client, but we're not making money. Now, that's when the board might say, you know what, I know we're not making money, but it's John Lewis. And we really want John Lewis as a client. Equally, they might turn around and say, it's John Lewis, it could be the bee's knees, but if we're not making any money, there's no point. So that was my role there. So what I meant by this job satisfaction part, or what, as you rightly pointed out, I know for a fact that the work I've done, that I'm taking to the business, I instantly can see how we're doing it, whether we're going to go ahead or not. Whereas when you're in corporate finance, I don't have that visibility, if you see what I mean. So that's the sort of long and short of what I did there. My apologies, I know I'm talking too much. And the last bit is, of course, in the civil service. And I think that was quite different because it was looking at management information. So again, lots of these words you're going to hear, but what is the difference between data and management information? Data is information, a lot of information, a lot of points. What you do with that information to make a decision that is what will impact the business is management information. So that is a different kind of finance or information. You can look at it in a different way, but yeah. So I'm going to stop there, guys. Sorry, I've eaten up so much of your time.
Thank you.
I think one of the key points that Nirupama and Mridula, you both mentioned is, Nirupama, you said it's very important to understand what the client wants, isn't it?
No,
And Mridula, you pointed out that you have to understand what is sort of similar thing. You said almost in merger and acquisitions, or you need to understand the business, which is quite vital to get into this
Absolutely.
kind of, and the thrill of it obviously is the other aspect.
Absolutely.
Do you have any questions, Parth?
Yeah, I was going to ask both of you, how did you get into this industry, like this finance industry? Like, what motivated you? What interested you into getting into this industry? So, Nirupama, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, sure. So to be honest, when I initially, because I was from a software background, it's just I was looking for a job, but
Yeah.
I thought, okay, in between, if I get any job, I will take it, and parallelly, I will look for my passionate job, and then when I get it, I'll take it. But when I looked at trade finance, when I started doing things, when I learned the concepts behind it and how it's work, it really fascinated me, and then that's the time I decided, because that's the time, because that time software industry was giving you a lot of money. Trade finance, banking doesn't give you comparatively that much money, but I don't think money was a motivation for me. I wanted to like what I was doing, and at that particular time I thought, yes, this is making me happy. I want to learn more, I want to do more, and yeah, that's the time I decided, and I know I continued. It's 18 years since then.
So, Mridula, if you'd like to.
Yes. So for me, Parth, I had just finished my MBA from Durham.
Yeah.
And frankly, I was desperately looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm not sure really what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to do my MBA because I always was interested in business and management and leadership. But to be honest with you, I wasn't really clear about what I wanted. So given my skills, I was looking for something in consulting, but I wasn't sure what exactly in consulting or which area of consulting. Now that was a very interesting time to be in the UK, because at the time they had this thing about having you needed to have inimitable skills in order to be in an organization, or you needed for the company to sponsor you. Yeah. Now imagine, I've just come out of business school, Indian passport, no one's really willing to give me a work permit or sponsor me. So interestingly, at that time, I interviewed, I had, oh my God, I don't even know how many interviews I had with small companies, big companies. But I interviewed with KPMG in the UK. Yeah. And they said, you know what, we really, really love you, and we love the energy you bring and what you can do, but we don't have anything here at the moment. We do, however, have something back in India. So are you willing to go back home? I'd been abroad by that point for 2 years, still relatively young, as it were. And, mom and dad started saying, why don't you come back home? There's so much happening. The Indian market was booming at the time. It had the economy had opened up. There was liberalization. So I went to India. I interviewed with KPMG. They said, yes. I had no clue what the job was. Absolutely no idea. Ignorance is bliss, as they say. And I literally walked in, and my first day, I just sat there going, okay, right. And I was given this big book. I was, mergers and acquisitions. And I said, okay, I had no clue what I'm doing. So I'm just going to photocopy this back for today. And that was my first day. But it was absolutely brilliant. And then I knew for a fact that, like I said, all the skills that were needed, the bit about understanding the business, the bit about getting into, deeper than the numbers, getting into the psyche of why things are the way they are, the imperatives, that really started out. And then it was always in finance, a stroke consulting in some shape or form. So for me, business, consulting, finance, all of that marries together when it comes to this kind of work.
Yeah, Mukund, if you'd like to ask the next question.
Yeah, I know you just touched on skills needed, so I just wanted to ask like a broader question to both of you. So what would you say the qualifications and the skills required would be, like just to pursue anything in the finance sector? Nirupama, you can go first.
Yeah. So, see, trade finance is a skilled one, but I'll give you my example. When I started doing trade finance, I didn't know anything. Like Mridula, no clue, nothing. So I did a reverse engineering kind of thing. Someone told me, do this, do this, do this. And then parallelly, I started reading books, why we do this, and then, you're connecting the dots. Okay. Oh, that's why I did this. Then there are some certifications that you can do to learn. But I'm saying it's a skill. Anybody can do it. Anybody can acquire it. But
okay.
I just compare trade finance with driving. Like Mridula said, how much ever books you read, how much ever certifications you do. But when you are actually left on the road to drive, you get different experiences, you get different scenarios. It is those learnings from where you actually learn. So even after 30 years or 40 years of having trade finance experience, you cannot say, oh, I'm an expert, I know everything. Everyday life, it throws you different scenarios, different situations to tackle.
So you said the experience is the biggest kind of learning. So it's not really qualification based, it's also the experience. So just like for both of you, do you recommend, is there anything that someone our age could do to gain that sort of experience, like familiarize themselves with any sort of financing?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go.
No, go on, Mridula.
No. Continue. You were on a roll at that point.
Okay. So for trade finance, obviously you have rules, regulations, what to do, how to do. You can read those books. And as I said, certifications, the theory part, you can obviously do so that when you see a document, you're familiar with it, what it is. But things, how to go about it, you will always learn on the job. So people learn these things, and over a period of time, they get experience in that, they expertise in that. But day one, you cannot be a master of it. As I said, even if after you're learning, 5 book series or something, or certifications, it's only the doing part that teaches us. Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I mean, there are a lot of, I'm happy to send you links, Mukund and Parth, for degrees and diploma courses that exist. So if you did want to go down the traditionalist, purist finance route, then there is, of course, the most common, which is the Chartered Finance Analyst, the CFA. It's cfaorg.uk. And they've got different levels of diplomas and degrees that you can do. There's also the Chartered Insurance Institute, the CII. They've got courses. You've got the CISI, which is the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment. There's the London Institute of Banking and Finance. So there's lots of stuff out there. But for me, the biggest learning, if for your age, and how you can know that, is something that I do a lot of in the work that I'm passionate about, which is mentoring and coaching. And in my opinion, there is no substitute for actually shadowing someone. Just going into a business or someone and this is where the power of networks, is, and I know that Anu and Nirupama will agree with that. The power of networking, the power of knowing people and saying, right, okay, so you're working in this bank, or you work in trade finance, or you work in KPMG or Goldman Sachs. Can I spend a couple of days? Can I spend a week? Can I just see what you do? Because what you will learn, like a sponge, nothing else can prepare you for that, especially at your age. And I think it's a wonderful learning opportunity to just see what's involved, just literally shadowing them and just watching the way they do things. Because you may not understand the technicalities of what they're doing, but the way they're doing it, to me, that is the learning that will help you. What you want to see, it's attitude. For me, it's always attitude. I don't care about competence. I tell my 10-year-old that. I don't care what the end result is. I really don't. But what I do care about is your journey. I am passionate that the journey you take, you learn from it, you get value from it. And nothing can substitute that than actually being in a role. So, you could be photocopying. I don't care. You could be photocopying 10 books. But what you will learn and what you will hear at the water cooler, what the snippets you're going to know, that is absolutely invaluable. So for your age, I would say something like that, just getting, during summer breaks, just asking people, can I come over? Can I spend time with you? And if you can't shadow them, spending an hour just talking to them, that is really invaluable. It's worth its weight in gold. So that is what my recommendation would be.
I think that's a really important point, because we need to have that kind of knowledge bank to create that network and to also obviously give opportunities to the young ones. So while you were talking about skills, is there some kind of minimum qualification that they are required? Like obviously Mukund is in his GCSE year. So would they need a minimum for an internship like that to just go in for a summer, like even shadowing? Is there a minimum qualification?
No, not at their age. Literally, you are only limited by your interest. I know, that's it. If you have the eagerness, if you have the keenness, and you're really, really zealous, I don't think there's anything that will stop you. You literally walk in there and say, this is what it's possible that I will be doing this going forward. I just want to know what lies ahead and what it entails. So at their level, there is absolutely no bare minimum. Of course, if they were to go on and want to become, let's say, for example, if you wanted to do wealth management, you absolutely need to have a bare minimum qualification. You cannot even progress to the next level, because remember, these are very, very highly regulated industries. So finance, while it sounds wonderful and really nice, I must also caution that there is a lot of regulation involved. So if you did want to go to that level where you wanted to officially and formally study something, you will require that. But remember, you're not handling client sensitive data. You're not going to be, there is a lot of security and protection and that kind of stuff. And they will keep you away from that. As I said, what you will be exposed to is the way they approach a problem. So just sitting down with someone and saying, okay, there's a problem for you. How do you approach it? Somebody might say they'll probably go down to the analysis of it. Somebody might say, I'm going to have a conversation. So it's more negotiation. So what you want to do is, you're so young at the moment, you want to learn as many techniques as possible. And that's what shadowing will do for you. It'll show you that there's more than one way of approaching a problem. And I think that is what is really valuable. But no, there's no minimum at this point. I mean, certainly not. Sorry, I should caveat from what I have been exposed to, and my experience. I don't know, Nirupama, whether in trade finance it would be different.
No, because at this age, as you said, you will not be exposed to the exact details. But yeah, the flow, how you do what you do. Yeah.
Parth, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah. So I was going to ask, as you guys have such experience in this sector and the world changed over the past 10, 15 years, how would you say this industry itself has changed since you started and where it is now? What are the differences in where it was and where it is now? Mridula, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah. So of course, the industries that I've operated in are in themselves mini industries and all have their ways of different norms and ways of working. But I think if there's one thing that's emerged, throughout as a as a trend, is the ability. I'm going to come down to attitude and ability. Is the ability to be nimble and adaptable. If any business has stayed stuck to the old ways of working, has shown zero flexibility, has not moved with the times and realized actually this product is not selling, we need to really be more agile in the way we approach things. We need to adopt technology, for example. Anyone who has not done that has basically died. So what I have seen is the way industries and services and all the finance areas that I've worked in have adopted technology, have adopted new ways of working, and are no longer looking at sort of archaic tools. They're looking at making the most of what is there and how can we be nimble. If you're not nimble in this world, you're dead, absolutely dead.
So would you say because obviously previous more online stuff and making your business broader to more people with what you have, because everyone can do everything from a computer, so it's just using all the facilities that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah, using all the technology, all the facilities. Importantly, understanding that you don't. So, for example, working remote. Now, for someone who's crunching numbers, who's analyzing data, they don't really need to be in an office. They can sit at home, they can sit behind a screen, be as productive, if not more. So they're not spending time in a train with their face stuffed in someone's armpit and, just kind of going over and doing stuff. They can actually be productive for those 2 hours that they commute. That is, but also I think importantly, people are realizing it's very important to know Excel. I want to say people think that we've all got this new glamorous software and tools and, that's great. And I think you need to automate data and you need to automate processes, but just simple things, knowing how to use simple tools, simple Excel, make the most of Excel. So if you can't afford to have some fancy software, whatever you've got, work with what you've got, but do it in a way which is nimble. Because I think what we need to understand is many businesses have lost so much money that they can't afford to have state-of-the-art things. But again, coming back to the point we were saying, it's the approach. How do you approach it in a nimble way? If you don't have it, can you data share with somebody else? Can you and 5 other businesses who work in shared spaces use the same infrastructure? So being nimble, being adaptable, as you say, use technology very wisely, and ensure that there are things that can happen without overly complicating. Just because we use technology doesn't mean we overly complicate. If you're using technology to make things complicated, you're doing something wrong. Technology is there to serve you, not the other way around.
Yeah. So Nirupama, if you'd like to add.
So for trade, it's whatever Mridula said, everything applies to that also. Now here you have some common banking practices that you have to follow. So I'll just give you an example. Maybe 10, 15 years back, the version of rules and regulations that you were using, they were a kind of obsolete that had started creating problems for buyers and sellers. For example, if buyer's name is Ashok, for example, and erroneously, if it happens, Ashok 1, just a typo error or something, it used to be a big discrepancy in the document. He won't get paid because of that.
Yeah.
So, small things which are like, common sense things. So slowly and steadily things got revised. So, okay, if it is a spelling mistake, we can ignore that, or if it is a typo error, we can ignore that. But at the same time, if it is, again, common sense, if it is a goods description with the change of even 1 and I, it can mean something else. There you cannot compromise. So for us, we cannot automate everything, because when you're checking something, you need a common sense of a person, because system will point it out as, Ashok as Ashok 1 as discrepant, but we as a person have to be there to analyze that situation. So those changes have been adapted in few years, say in the banking practices, saying, these things can be ignored, but these things have to be taken care of to ease off the business, because those businesses were getting stuck. Because of small discrepancies, payments were not going ahead, goods were getting released. So, it was a chaos everywhere. So those changes have been made so that, there is a smooth running of the processes and common sense, basically. Yes, if there are certain mistakes, but it doesn't imply that, it doesn't, mean that, okay, so go ahead. But so a lot of analysis is required there, that's why you need skilled people to do this job.
Yeah.
But again, anyone can do it, anyone can acquire it.
Yeah.
Parth and Mukund, I just want to add one thing. We talked about things changing and using technology, as you had said, Parth, but I do want to stress that technology cannot substitute human interaction. Yeah. So the one thing I want to stress on is when we talked about being nimble, it's also understanding that there are certain things that can happen behind a screen, but nothing can substitute having that face-to-face human level of interaction so that you can understand what problems are. Unfortunately, technology cannot break down barriers. So like Nirupama said, where that human intervention is required for understanding what problems are. Nothing can substitute having a discussion, picking up a phone, meeting up for a coffee and saying, what is the problem? because the Zoom call cannot do that and software cannot do that. So it's really important to understand one of the key skills, I keep saying, communication, and ensuring that you do talk, you do maintain that channel of communication, keep that open, and ensure that you are trying to understand the problem, because a phone call will probably take you 5 minutes to solve something that would go on and on over Zoom or technology or something like that. So understanding that is vital in the whole adaptability model.
Yeah, Mukund, if you'd like to ask the next.
Yeah, so both of you both touched on the importance of analysis. So obviously, you know, seeing the history of a company or an enterprise and then, you know, predicting the future based on that. So how would you, like, on a scale, obviously, how important would you rate analysis skills, and what do you guys do to improve and develop your analysis skills? Does it come naturally or does it just come with experience? So
I would say experience. Some things definitely you get nibbles, snippets, how to do, what to do, you know, you get to learn that quickly. But how do you implement in yourself? That I believe in trade, at least, you know, it comes with experience. You do mistakes also, but that's how you learn. You know, this is so it's not hard and fast. In a particular situation, this analysis might work, but in the other situation, this analysis might not work. So it's about priorities and how do you think that, you know, this analysis is going to work in this case, and, you know, it will impact that in a particular way. So it's not like numbers, you punch in numbers and done. It's too vague.
I would say, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Because obviously, if you think about it, the data can be there for the past and then prediction for the future. But obviously, you require the personal human input to actually make the decision. So, yeah. So,
Yes,
I want to touch on that as well.
Yeah, I do. I completely agree with Nirupama in what she said. And I would add one more thing. It's really important to understand analysis is just the output. What you have to understand is the input. And the input is, in order to analyze something, you need to understand why it's happening.
Yeah.
So there's the cause and the effect. You can analyze a set of numbers, like you said, there'll be data. You can look at the data and put in a formula and it'll come up with an answer. But it doesn't tell you why. It will still only tell you what it sees. So it's looking at a trend. Oh, turnovers changed from here to here. Oh, turnovers dipped. Or profits have dipped, or profits have suddenly, but why? What happened? I know there was the global recession in 2011. So there was this dip here. Oh, I understand now. And here is where mental health took a toss. So if you're a company who's looking at mental health, if you're a charity, if you're Mind, you're looking at the direct correlation between recession and mental health. You're looking at the direct correlation between COVID and mental health. So you see what I mean about understanding drivers. Why has something happened? Because on its own, numbers mean nothing without context. So I would say analysis, yes, sure, you can learn formulae, you can do a few short courses, and those are really helpful tools. But nothing will prepare you for actually understanding why something's happened. You need to read a lot. So talking about why, you need to be up to date with the latest information. What are the global trends? What is happening in the world around you? If it's climate change, what's going on here? Why did this happen? And then, like Nirupama says, experience. You make loads of mistakes. You learn, you fall, and you get up. And I would say if you don't make mistakes, then there's something wrong. Something is seriously wrong, because you should be making lots and lots of mistakes. And those mistakes will teach you everything that you will possibly learn during your tenure in that, whatever job it is, whatever career you choose. I would encourage people to make lots of mistakes, because that's the best way to learn.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, what is the most difficult challenges you've faced, like at work daily, like on a day-to-day basis, and also throughout your career? So like what challenges, what difficult tasks have you faced? So Nirupama, if you'd like to go first.
I would say prioritization.
Yeah.
Because banking, trade is all money. So what do you put first? What do you put later? situational strategies, and yeah, that's it. I wouldn't say challenging in a bad way, but challenging in a good way. How you get the work done at end of the day and you leave happily, because it's all money matters at end of the day. You have to understand, see, everything is important in a day, so you have to understand, if it is a busy day, what can you afford to put it for next day, and what you can't, what will have repercussions, what will have some impacts. So again, it is analysis, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. I think that's a really good point you made, Nirupama. There isn't enough stress put on time management, put on prioritization. And actually, experience will teach you that, but it's also knowing when to do what. I had a lovely boss who once told me, don't chase butterflies. Because my natural tendency is to want to do everything. I want to chase every butterfly that exists and flies around me. But it's about understanding that, which are the ones you should choose. There will be very beautiful looking butterflies, and then there will be the butterflies who just come and sit. And you need to know what is it, which will you choose? And that again comes with experience. You'll realize very quickly that there are some things which look very attractive, but actually will not give you what you need. So understand the consequence, the impact. If I don't get this done today, what could possibly happen?
Yeah.
And can this wonderful butterfly that's sitting here, can I attend to it tomorrow? And if the answer is yes, then do. Because there's another thing that we need to be, people think, not wrongly so, that if you're in the financial services sector, you're going to be working longer hours. That will certainly happen if you're not able to prioritize what you need to do.
Yeah.
And again, as they say, if you take more than 9 hours to do your work, then there's something wrong with your work, or there's something wrong with the way you're looking at it. And that should not be the case. You don't earn any brownie points by being in the office for 12 hours. Really don't. Because if you fall ill, no one's going to come and help you out just because you work 12 hours in the office.
You're saying quality over quantity.
Absolutely. Quality and prioritization. Yeah. Prioritize what needs to be done. If it can wait until tomorrow, it should. Secondly, I would say, coming back to communication, if you think something is really urgent, but you still can't do it, ensure that the communication chain has been established. Ensure you explain why that can't be done. Trust me, it's the most wonderful thing you can do. You'll be happy, they'll be happy, or they may not be very happy, but at least you'll know that you've informed them that there's a reason I can't do this. You've managed that chain. Problems happen when you haven't communicated and you can't deliver. So, in prioritization, you'll find as you guys start doing, your roles as as entrepreneurs or in organizations, that you will never ever find that everyone is happy. You can make some people happy all of the time, all people happy some of the time, but never all of the people all of the time. Yeah. So ensure who those people are, and ensure and prioritize that you let them know, I can't do this now, but I can do it tomorrow. Equally, if you want it done now, can you please speak to so-and-so and take this off me so I can work on it? So there are workarounds on that. But I think prioritization, as Nirupama said, is a really wonderful example of one of the biggest challenges.
I think we're sort of running out of time. I'm so sorry. It's so interesting. But Mukund and Parth, do you want to ask a final question? Because I think we can always sort of do this again, like a part 2. But at the moment, do you want to ask a final question?
I'll just ask a last question, and then Parth can just close off, if that's okay. So I just wanted to ask both of you questions. It's kind of like quite broad. Where do you see the future of your jobs 1 year, 5 year, and 10 years into the future? So if Nirupama can start.
Yeah, I think trade finance is always going to be there. Shipments are always going to happen. Imports, exports is always going to happen. The interesting thing is, like, what leaps and changes happen. So, for example, I am a CDCS, so it is a designation, Certified Documentary Credit Specialist. So you have to keep earning your points every 3 years for that. So how do you do that? You have to keep reading, you have to get into seminars, you have to know what is changing, what is not changing, how do you adapt? So I think these doing the same thing with new technology, new changes is challenging, and that's where I see it. See, basic things are not going to change.
I would
how you do it.
Yeah. I would concur with that. Unless you're doing something very specialized, Parth and Mukund, you will find that you will just need to be on top of your game. But in certain areas that are highly regulated, you need to ensure that if you're an accredited person, then, or a subject matter expert, that you continue keeping that relevant. The only thing I would keep saying is, no matter what it is that you do, ensure that you're always reinventing yourself. So I think that is going to be vital. If it is that you are, specializing in XYZ, let's say wealth management, just make sure that you are always broadening the depth, broadening the T. So obviously you are a subject, you've got the depth of the T, but you must also broaden it, because as far as I can see, this world, who would have ever thought that COVID would wreak the havoc that it did? So I think you have to be very, very, very open and ensure that you have kind of, make sure that you have, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Do also keep the breadth open so that you can then keep yourself relevant. That is what I would say.
Thank you.
I'll just ask the last one and then close it off. So I was going to ask, currently, right now, like obviously there's been effects of COVID. What would you say the aspects of banking? What aspects of banking are more in demand right now? Like right now compared to what it was a few years ago or before COVID or now after COVID? So Mridula, you'd like to go first?
Okay, I think that's quite a broad question, Parth, I feel, because banking is a kind of subset of financial services. So I think that would be a bit more specific. But I think in general, as I said, we have to realize what the role that technology is playing. So what I mean by that is, and I know at some point we might have some session which is specifically on this subject, but the area of fintech, for example, of payments, we do everything on our phones now, right? Everything, you whether it's Amazon, whether you buy something, it's a click of a button. So how do we use technology to empower? How do we use technology to facilitate and make things easier? And I think that confluence of technology in banking, look at the new banks you've got now, the Monzos and the Starlings and the Revoluts. You don't have to go to a bank anymore. Younger people want that. They want quick service. They don't want to necessarily go to a bank and see a person there. They just want to get stuff done quickly. They're happy to have a chat over just a chat saying, okay, I can't understand this. Can you tell me what's gone wrong? I've lost my card. Click of a button, blocked, job done. Don't need to speak to anybody. So that bit,
so you're just saying like a quicker process.
Yes, using technology to make those processes more effective. And that's where fintech or the payment space is huge. You only have to look around and every company is calling themselves that. And they're valued as some of the most valuable companies in the world. So for me, that would be.
So convenience.
Yes, absolutely. Convenience and speed, Mukund. You want it quick. I don't, the youth of today doesn't want to go to a bank and, wait for 1 hour. They just don't have that time. They would rather be playing on something else, I don't know, Xbox or whatever joyous things you'll have. So convenience and speed, yes.
As Mridula has already touched it, yes, I think fintech will be actually the next one that we are hoping to sort of conduct as in another course. Before we finish, I just want to say, this is really interesting to listen to what both of you had to say. So one of the key things I sort of understood was, I think the boys might agree. So your interpersonal skills are as important in the kind of banking sectors that you both are definitely from, where you need to obviously understand the business, the clients. Obviously, you need a lot of negotiation skills as well. So that is something that an individual needs to have, obviously, an interest into banking. So that's quite an important thing. And the other thing that you touched on was a mentoring and shadowing. So I think that would be really useful if we adults, if we have an opportunity for children like Mukund or Parth who are interested, and we see a gap somewhere where they can actually come in, and if they have the time to come in, sort of get a little bit of an experience or just an understanding of how things are. And accordingly, it'll help them sort of decide whether this is what they actually want to be into.
Absolutely.
Or to have the little flavor of different aspects of, say, maybe trade finance or the kind of banking that you're involved in, Mridula. And obviously, I'm sure if the other people who are listening would also help the children out here, give them that opportunity. But what I would also like to say, thank you so much for being part of this, especially to the young boys, Mukund and Parth, who were very keen to do this. And obviously, I mean, if there are more, they might come along as well. And thank you, especially Nirupama and Mridula, for being part of this endeavor too, and giving such an in-depth understanding of how your roles in the banking sector has been. And what I understand is much, much more. It's not just the two roles that Mridula you're doing, or Nirupama. It's been quite a subject that nobody understands from the other side. Mukund and Parth, do you want to sort of conclude?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for the advice. It's really beneficial, just to hear about what you guys have been through, like your journey and like what you guys have done, because it's not just like what meets the eye, it's much more than that. So I'd just like to say thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for providing us with the opportunity, and thanks for giving us some sort of perspective onto finance and your jobs. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, because it's hard to, we take these things for granted, and it makes us so happy that at your age, thank you for formulating such well thought out questions. So thank you for that. And Anu, thank you for creating the series. It's a really wonderful thing you're doing.
Well,
Thank you. I just want to add one thing that, there is no shortcut to success. We have to work hard, particularly for children, at this age, if they think they will have some snippets and, convenience there. But yes, there is no shortcut to success. At a particular age, you really have to slog. You really have to work hard to, achieve something, get somewhere. So you have to work hard. No shortcuts there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good Sunday. Bye.
Bye.